Hello everyone and welcome back to another math video. Today we're going to be looking at how do you solve a system of equations. We're going to use elimination and substitution. Just a reminder, this is the normal version of the lesson. If you'd like the speedrun version where we go pretty quickly, I will link that in the description below. All right, your 30-second recap starts now. Here's what you have to know before you start this lesson. You should already know how to solve equations, how to move stuff, do it on both sides, use inverse operations, opposites, and how to isolate a variable, right? How to solve it. If you do not know how to do this already, I will put a refresher video in the description below. Please go watch that before you attempt this lesson. All right, new lesson, here we go. So a system of equations. System of equations, let's do purple. System of equations. System of equation is asking you for two numbers, all right? So your answer is going to be two numbers, and it's going to be an x and a y, okay? And it's asking for two numbers that will work for both of these equations, right? Here's your system of equations. It's called a system because there's more than one. Okay, it could be 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. And we want to know what's an x, what's a y that will work for both of these. If you were to look at the graphs of these, we are asking, where do these lines intersect, right? Where do they hit each other? All right, and today we're going to start with elimination here. So here we go. The way you do elimination is, let's think of this as adding straight down. So if I add negative 8x plus 10x, I get positive 2x. If I add positive 7y minus 7y, I get 0y equals negative 12 plus 8 is negative 4. Again, we're just adding straight down. And this is called the elimination method because you'll notice that the y's basically are gone, right? Because 0y is nothing. And so now we just have this nice easy equation, 2x equals negative 4, divide by 2 on both sides, and you get that x equals negative 2. Now, once you have that x equals negative 2, you need to take this number and substitute it or go back to either of your original problems. It doesn't matter which one you choose. I'm going to choose the top one, right? So the top one was negative 8x plus 7y equals negative 12. Let's replace the x with negative 2. So now we have negative 8 times negative 2 plus 7y equals negative 12. And now we need to solve. Negative 8 times negative 2 is 16. How do we get this y by itself? Well, we're going to subtract 16 on both sides. And let me bring this line of work over here because I'm out of space. I would be left with 7y equals negative 28. Divide by 7 on both sides. Again, we should know how to solve equations at this point. And we get negative 4. So your final solution, which is always two numbers in a system of linear equations, negative 2, negative 4. Negative 2, negative 4. Here's your solution. All right, here's our cool clock for today, which means that it's time for you to practice what you just learned. Go ahead and pause the video and try these two problems on your own. And when you're ready, you can unpause the video and we'll check your answers. Okay, now that you've had time to work these problems, let's check your solutions. Okay, for the first problem, you should have gotten 8, negative 5. Here's the work if you want to check your answer. And for the second problem, here is the work. You should have gotten negative 2, negative 1. Now, for this problem, if you try to add straight down, you would get negative 9x minus 14y equals 6. And this is not elimination, right? We don't have a 0 for one of our x's or y's. And so clearly we need to do something different for this type of problem. And what you might notice is that here, if you look at these, this is 7, 7. One of them needs to be positive, one of them needs to be negative. Right now they're both negative. So how can we make one of them positive? Well, let's multiply it by negative 1, right? Because multiplying by negative 1 will switch the sign. And what we have to do here is you have to multiply everything by negative 1. So that means negative 1 times negative 6 makes it 6x. Negative 1 times negative 7y makes it positive 7y, which we wanted. And negative 1 times 18 is negative 18. Leave the bottom equation the same. And now add straight down. So now we get 3x. This is 0. We can say that eliminates, equals negative 30. Divide by 3. and you get x equals negative 10. And then if you substitute back in, and remember, let's substitute back into the original before we multiply by negative 1. So it would be negative 6 times negative 10 minus 7y equals 18. And here's the work for when you substitute in, you should get y equals 6. So your final answer is negative 10 comma 6. So again, if you add down and something doesn't eliminate, then we need to change something. All right, time to practice. Go ahead and pause the video, try these two. When you're ready, unpause, we'll check your answers. Okay, now that you've had time to work these problems, let's check your solutions. All right, for the first problem, you should have gotten negative 9 comma negative 8. Here's the work if you want to check. And for the second problem, I know it's set up a little bit differently than what you're used to, but they're still lined up. So remember, there's invisible ones there. And so we cancel out the y's. Notice that you get a 0 when you cancel those out. And so for your final answer, here's the rest of the work. You should have gotten 2 comma negative 6. Now for this problem, if we add straight down, again, nothing cancels out, all right? And even if we multiply this by negative 1 or the other one by negative 1, still nothing will cancel out. So when that happens, this is a special case, okay? What you have to do is you take the first number that you see here. So I take this 4, and I'm going to multiply everything in here by 4, all right? And then I'm going to take, let me change colors here. And then I'm going to take this 6 and multiply everything in this on the top one by 6. All right, so you just sort of flip-flop. There is another way to do this, but we'll talk about that in a second. So now, after all this, now we're going to have 24x plus 24y equals 48. And on the bottom, we'll have 24x plus 32y equals 40. And now, again, even if you add straight down, nothing is going to cancel, right? So this is where now you need to multiply again by negative 1. So now we have negative 24x minus 24y equals negative 48. And the bottom one doesn't change. Okay, and from here we've done this type of problem. So I'm going to skip through the work here. All right, and here is the final answer, right? We just do our work like normal. We get 3, negative 1. So again, if nothing is canceling when you add straight down, try multiplying by the opposite, say, coefficient or the opposite front number. All right, time to practice. Go ahead and pause the video. Try these on your own. When you're ready, unpause. We'll check your answers. Okay, now that you've had time to work these problems, let's check your solutions. All right, for the first problem here is the work. You should have gotten 4, negative 4. And for the second problem, you should have gotten 1, negative 2. Here's the work. All right, last type of problem. Here we go. This one looks a little different, but it's actually halfway done for you because they tell you one of the equations says that x equals negative 3. So they've actually already given you the first number in your answer, right? And so if we have the first number, all we need to do is substitute this in, right? So we're going to change this to a negative 3. So now it becomes negative 5 times negative 3. All right? So if you see a problem like this, this is already halfway done for you. And we get negative 18. Divide by 9, you get y equals negative 2. So your answer is negative 3, negative 2. Right? So if they give you x equals or y equals, problem's already halfway done. Just solve it from there. All right, time to practice. Go ahead and pause. Try these last two on your own. When you're ready, unpause. We'll check your answers. Okay, now that you've had time to work these problems, let's check your solutions. Okay, for the first problem, here is the work, and you should have gotten 10 comma negative 3. And for the second problem, here is the work. Final answer should have been 10 comma negative 10. All right, that is it for today. I hope you all have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.